Hey guys, I'm back with another video. I hope you're all well and safe. So if you are already a subscriber, then welcome back, and if you are new to this channel, then I make a lot of content about books. So if you are a book lover and a reader or would like to become one, then do hit that subscribe button and also click on the bell icon. So in today's video, I am going to show you my collection of non-fiction books. So this is going to be part 1 because I cannot show you all the non-fiction books that I have in this one video. In today's video, I'll show you 40 non-fiction books out of all the non-fiction books that I have. So let's get started. So what do you read more, fiction or non-fiction? Or do you try to strike a balance between the two? In any case, let me know in the comments which is your favorite non-fiction book. I look forward to your comments. The first book is Remnants of a Separation by Aanchal Malhotra. So this book revisits the partition of India through the objects that people carried across the borders. So this book has accounts of people who came from Pakistan to India, people who went from India to Pakistan, people who came from Bangladesh to India. When it comes to partition related literature, this is a book that you cannot miss out on. Next up is Educated by Tara Westover. So this is a memoir of Tara Westover where she has talked about growing up in a conservative family and how she never went to a school. She was never even homeschooled, but she still ended up getting a PhD. Her father was radical, her brother was radical, and she talks about how she got her education and the price that she paid for it. Again, highly recommend this book. Next up is 3000 Stitches by Sudha Murthy. It's a collection of 11 stories, but they are all non-fiction and they are very inspiring. If you have not read this book, you definitely should. Next up is The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. So this is a self-help book. It talks about the 4 agreements that we should adopt for a happy and a free life. It's a bit repetitive, but on the whole, it's a positive experience reading this book. Next up is Geisha, A Life by Mineko Iwasaki with Rande Brown. This book is a real account of what actually it is to be a geisha and how the life is like, because Mineko Iwasaki was a geisha. So this is a good read if you are interested in this topic. Next up is Underground by Haruki Murakami. So in this book, Haruki Murakami has interviewed the victims of the Tokyo gas attack of 1995 to understand their psyche and to understand what exactly happened that day. So I read a part of this book and initially it was a bit interesting, but honestly I was not able to get into this book beyond a point. Next up is Lone Fox Dancing, My Autobiography by Ruskin Bond. So if you are a fan of Ruskin Sir's writing, then go for this book because I loved it. Next up is A Scrapbook of Memories by Ashok Chopra. So this book is non-fiction, of course, and it has stories from the Indian publishing world, specifically English language publishing in India, and I've read a few chapters in this book and I've loved them so far. Haven't completed this book because I am savoring it. Next up is Agatha Christie, an autobiography. So Agatha Christie is one of my favorite authors, but I have not read her autobiography yet because I want to read some more fiction books by her and then I'll pick this one up. Next up is Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari. I read this book in 2019 and it was one of my favorite reads of 2019. This book is very informative and challenging to read at the same time. You are not bored while reading this book at all. It's a very interesting read. Next up is My Feudal Lord by Tehmina Durrani. So Tehmina Durrani came from one of the most influential families in Pakistan, and in this book she has talked about her marriage with Mustafa Khar. She has talked about her challenges of being married to him and how he abused her. This is a riveting read, but at the same time it is traumatizing, I'm not going to lie. Next up is The Epic City, The World on the Streets of Calcutta by Kushanava Chaudhary. So this book is about Calcutta, of course. Next up is Becoming by Michelle Obama. So this is Michelle Obama's memoir and I have a review of this book up on my channel. You can check it out. It's a great book for sure, but it is definitely not a quick read. It takes time to get through this book. Next up is 13 Steps to Bloody Good Luck by Ashwin Sanghi. I read this book a few years back and I remember liking it, but it does not exactly blow your mind, so that's the thing. Next up is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, one of the most popular self-help books out there. I have a review of this book up on my channel as well. If you want, you can check it out. Next up is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me and Other Concerns by Mindy Kaling. I read this book in 2017. Mindy Kaling is very funny and that is something that you read in this book as well. I'm definitely going to reread it now that I'm watching The Office. Next up is Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom. So in this book, Mitch Albom, after years of graduating, reconnects with his sociology professor Maury and goes to visit him every Tuesday. And every Tuesday, Maury dispenses some invaluable wisdom. So if you want a dose of positivity and simplicity, then this book shall not be missed. Next Next up is Elon Musk by Ashley Vance. So this is Elon Musk's biography, and I haven't read this book so far only because this book low-key intimidates me and I'm trying to get over that. Next up is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. So I plan to read this one in February. So Eddie dies on his 83rd birthday in a tragic accident, and then he wakes up in heaven and there he meets 5 people who impacted his life. Next up is How I Braved Anu Auntie and Co-Founded a $1 million Company by Varun Agarwal. So Varun Agarwal did not want to do a 9-to-5 job. He wanted to become an entrepreneur. So in this book he has talked about his journey of becoming an entrepreneur and the challenges that he faced. So this book is very simply written, it's no nonsense, and on the whole it's an inspiring read. Next up is The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. I feel that it doesn't matter whether you are a reader or a non-reader. Everybody knows about The Secret by Rhonda Byrne and everybody has it and everybody has read it. And I think we all know about the law of attraction and manifestation. Next up I have 3 books by William Dalrymple. So one of them is City of Jinns, A Year in Delhi, and I read this book in 2016 and I liked this book. It was a slow read, but on the whole it was enjoyable to read. The other 2 books are these: The Age of Kali, Indian Travels and Encounters, and Kohinoor, The Story of the World's Most Infamous Diamond by William Dalrymple and Anita Anand. Next up is Man-Eaters of Kumaon by Jim Corbett. So in this book, Jim Corbett has shared 10 stories in which he has talked about tracking and shooting man-eating tigers in the region of Kumaon. So he had to kill these tigers because these tigers were killing the people in the region of Kumaon. So that is one thing that I need you to know. If this is a subject of your interest, then I must tell you that Jim Corbett was a great writer and that is reflected in this book. Next up is Maximum City, Bombay Lost and Found by Suketu Mehta. A few years back I had picked it up and unfortunately my flow of reading this book was not that smooth, so I had kept it down. So hopefully in 2021 I'll pick this one again and maybe this time I'll be able to connect with this book. Next up is Dharma, Decoding the Epics for a Meaningful Life by Amish Tripathi and Bhavna Roy. So this book has different characters and the ideas in this book are shared through the conversations among those characters. Next up is 11 Ways to Love. So this is a collection of 11 essays written by 11 different people. The theme of this book is that there is no one correct way to love and that love should not be put in a box. If you want to read this book, you have to be open-minded. I personally like this book a lot. Next up is Jane Austen Alive by Claire Tomlin, and this book is very high up on my TBR for 2021. Next up is Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt. It's a memoir of a childhood. So I had picked this book up in 2018, but I was going through a mindset where this book got too heavy for me because this is a depressing read, guys. It's a brilliant book, but it's depressing. I am in a place where I can read this book without it getting too traumatic for me. Next up is The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. So Anne Frank was a Jewish girl and she wrote her diary as she was in hiding with her family during the Nazi occupation. She was 13 years old. It's a very heartbreaking and an unforgettable book. Next up is Mrs. Funny Bones by Twinkle Khanna. So this book is based on Twinkle Khanna's own life. It has chapters starting from A to Z. So basically A to Z aspects of her life. I've made a review video on this book. If you want to check it out, you can. Next up is Some Assembly Required, The Not So Secret Life of a Transgender Teen by Aaron Andrews. So Aaron was born as a girl named Emerald, but right from the start it was clear that he was a boy born in a girl's body. So in this book, Aaron has talked about his experiences of coming to terms with his reality and going through a sex change operation as well. I found this book unexpectedly, but this book was very informative and enlightening. Next up is Chanakya in Daily Life by Radhakrishnan Pillai. So this book is a self-help book divided in 3 parts: personal life, professional life and family life. The author has simplified the kingmaker Chanakya's teachings from Arthashastra and Chanakya Niti to be applied in our daily lives. Next up is Burma Chronicles by Guy Delisle. So this is a travelogue in the form of a graphic novel, and in this travelogue, Guy Delisle has talked about his experience of staying in Burma or Myanmar for around a year. This is not a fast read, to be honest, but it is definitely a page turner. Next up is Persepolis, The Story of a Childhood and the Story of a Return by Marjane Satrapi. So this is Marjane Satrapi's memoir or autobiography. This book begins in 1980s in Iran, and this was my first graphic novel, and till date this is one of my all-time favorite reads. This book is brilliant and full of dark humor. Next up is Joseph Anton by Salman Rushdie. It's a memoir of Salman Rushdie. Joseph Anton was his alias that he made by combining the names of two of his favorite authors, Chekhov and Conrad. So in this memoir, Salman Rushdie has talked about his life as he was forced underground and as he had to be on the move constantly because his life changed completely after the Satanic Verses came out. I want to read at least 3 books by him first before I pick this one up. Next up is You Can Win by Shiv Khera. This was one of my first self-help books ever. I read this book so many years back and I remember being so motivated after reading it. Next up is The Perks of Being Moderately Famous by Soha Ali Khan. So Soha Ali Khan has written about her own life in this book. My primary reason for going for this book was because of the catchy title. The content in the book wasn't nearly as attractive and catchy as the title, but on the whole, it was a nice-ish book. And finally, the first Firangis by Jonathan Gill Harris. Guys, I could not record it. I kind of forgot about this one while recording it. So I'm sorry. I've kept it for the last because of that. So that was it, guys. That was my part 1 of my collection of non-fiction books. I showed 40 books in today's video. I hope you liked watching it. If you want to connect with me on my social media, then the links are in the description box. I'll see you in my next video. Till then, bye-bye. Take care and stay safe.